it's Shana. Welcome to Controlled Chaos, the podcast where we dive into the world of recovery, sharing stories of experience, strength, and hope from those who have been there and made it through. No matter where you are in your battle with addiction, alcoholism, or mental health struggles, know that there is a way out. Throughout my sobriety journey, I have often felt alone and doubted my ability to even stay sober. Starting this podcast in my room just 2 months ago, I had a dream of reaching people just like me, those who felt hopeless. As a woman in recovery, I began with 0 followers, but with a dream of offering hope to even just one person. The mission of this podcast is to connect, inspire, and provide hope to those feeling lost or struggling with addiction. Remember, the opposite of addiction and isolation is sobriety and connection. Let's come together through the Controlled Chaos podcast and support each other on the journey to healing and growth. Hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and let's build a community of support and understanding. Love you mucho. Welcome to Controlled Chaos. My name is Shana, and this is my very best friend. I'm so excited. Jeanie Griffin, can you just tell us a little bit about you?
Oh, what
All the
about?
stuff.
Well, I have a bunch of degrees and a bunch of licenses that are all used to be all over a wall. So that every time I began feeling badly about myself, I'd look at the wall and say, see, you're okay. Those are now in a box. So progress, not perfection.
Right.
I still love to learn, so I still love to go to workshops and things like that. But otherwise, I'm okay with not having all that. But to legitimize myself, I have been a private practice and contract therapist in the addiction world for about 35 years. And I have 38 years of recovery, 38 and a half actually, of recovery from flaming codependency, mood altering and mind altering chemicals, and from being an adult child of alcoholism. So I qualify on a lot of levels. I live in Southern California. I grew up and used to live in Texas until I turned 50, and then I ran away from home and came to California. I had finished raising my daughter and had wanted to move someplace else for a long time. And I thought, East Coast, West Coast. East Coast, I have family there, but it's cold. So I continued my love of warm weather, not the weather we're having now, but warm weather, and moved to California. I have worked in treatment centers as a clinical director, as lead therapist, as family therapist, as individual therapist. And my private practice has always gone along hand in hand because I have to, I'm not a good employee. I don't herd well. So I keep things loose. I always have a back door. So I can go into a treatment center as a contract provider and do very well. I think some of it is I get bored and need diversity. So if I look at my life before I was even a therapist within the addiction world, I was a teacher and I was a high school teacher. So every 50 minutes, I got a whole new crop of kids and nothing stayed the same. So the one thing I do know is people. And the other thing that I do know is that everybody's on a spiritual journey. Sometimes they just go to the wrong address, and I help them get back on track.
So I never knew that you were a teacher, and that's like my favorite thing you've ever said because I could totally see you being a badass teacher.
Basically, that's what I do in my therapy. I get real tired if all I have to do is listen to people whine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, do you want change or not? And I don't have a magic wand, and I can't make other people change. So if you want change, you can't just come in here once a week and dump all your stuff here and whine and then go out and nothing changes. So I'm going to be direct and I'm going to interject and I'm going to teach. So I think probably my DNA is that of a teacher. And that's what I do. Now my practice is divided really into kind of 3 things. One, the addiction world, and I can help in that area. If you're the addict, if you're in love with one, if you're the father of one, the child of one, whatever. I can help with any dynamic in the family for addiction. Then there are people who don't have addiction, but they have other stuff. Everybody has stuff.
Yeah.
And they want personal transformation or some sort of personal growth. And I can help with that. And then there are others that want personal growth, but they're really exploring a spiritual direction. And I can help with that spiritual transformation as well. So I see all kinds of people on their journeys. And thanks to COVID, much of it is on Zoom. And
Yeah.
if I'm not licensed in a place where somebody wants some help, then I just coach them.
Just coach. So we kind of laugh about it, but you really are like a guru therapist, right? You're like a, I don't know, 3, 4 time Amazon bestseller. Like you've been around the block and really like helped a ton of people. So including me, right? We worked together for a long time. And I remember calling you when I wasn't doing so hot. And you're very right about the fact that you're direct, because all I remember of this conversation was you saying, just shut up. Do you want to go to rehab? And I was in rehab, bus ticket and all, in 24 hours.
Well, that's why my
You weren't
business
trying to hear me whine.
that's why my business is entitled Fresh Out of Plans. I mean,
I love it. It's
if
still
you
my
have
favorite story.
God,
Call Jeanie. I don't know what happened, but I was in rehab. And listen, I'm sober, so something worked, right?
something worked. Yeah. Yeah, that was wonderful because the timing was perfect. Because there was a person that I knew that we all worked at the same treatment center, and
Yes.
he and his bride had opened a new treatment center. And when people open what I know, and those of you who need this, listen, when somebody opens a new treatment center, they want to get their name out there. And so they're willing to take clients, even if they don't have any money. So I always call and say, I understand you've opened a new treatment center and I have somebody and they need you. How about a discount or free? And they'll say, okay. And so always remember that.
Can you tell us a little bit about like how you help people who are struggling with addiction, alcoholism? Like what is the first go-to thing that you say to people that are struggling?
Do you want to change?
Yeah.
Do you want to change? Because, me included,
Mhm.
human beings want the world to change. They want other people to change. I want change in my life, but here's your script. And if you would just do this, then my life would be great.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. God, I wish it would, but it doesn't. I tried that for many years too, handing everybody a script. And then I had to go back and apologize to them for being arrogant enough to know what they ought to do with their life when I didn't know what to do with mine. So the
Right.
first thing is, do you want change? Yeah. Well, okay. Maybe somebody you love or is involved with you may change, but you got to change first. And it may not be fair, but we need to find out, what else you need to do so that you are responsible for your own happiness. That was the hardest lesson I ever learned. I thought some man or some person, place, or thing was supposed to make me happy. And you'll hear a phrase all the time where people say, "You made me mad. You
Mhm.
need to make me happy." You know what? Nobody can make you anything. And I'll say, okay, this is a cycle. Do you want to change it or not? And what can you do to be different? Because if you are different, it's going to change the dynamic. Now, sometimes it changes it for the worst. And sometimes we have to pay attention to how do you protect yourself and how do you get out of a situation where you might be in danger. But it'll cause ripples in the family. And then if I'm working with family members, oh, they love to talk about, polish their halo and everything they've done. But
Mhm.
but they're very reluctant to let the chaos unfold the way it's going to, because oh no, I can't. So things will get a little bit better and the addiction will go underground, and then they get all happy and think that, okay, now we can go back to maybe drinking normally or just occasionally smoking pot. And a lot of times it's they don't want to look at their own use of chemicals, but
Mm-hmm.
also they don't want that. All they're doing is propping the loved one up so that there's not a crisis. And when I tell them, let the crisis unfold, oh, I'm not ready for that. Well, okay, keep in this loop. And but I keep putting it back on them.
Right.
Are you happy? Are you happy? Um, can you be happy in this situation without handing the other person a script and saying this is what you need to change? And then
Right.
somebody does go into treatment or does go into recovery. Not everybody has to go to treatment. Most everybody has to go to detox to have a safe detox. Uh, but not everybody has to go to treatment. Long before treatment centers, there was AA, and there were no detox centers. But the kind of drugs people are on today, a lot of times need a medically supervised detox
Right.
before anything else.
Right. I know when I was like going through the whole like drinking, not drinking thing, my mom always used to say, like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And it used to make me so mad because I would be like, I'm not doing the same thing on purpose. Like, I don't
Right.
understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And now that I'm out of it, I understand. But why is it that as addicts and alcoholics, sometimes like we really miss like a whole big part of the picture? Like we miss our part in it all the times.
Well, because we know today that addiction is a multifaceted disease, and it is a disease. People get upset by saying that word because it's like, well, I can't sit in the same room with you and catch alcoholism. And I thought, well, maybe you will, but not like a cold. But
Right.
it is a brain disease, and it has a physiological component, and I can explain that in a minute, in the brain. There is a mental illness that goes along with it. The thinking is very distorted. And because of the physiological effects, it renders the brain, the frontal lobe, which is where you make executive decisions and um, fix things and can solve problems and etc. That goes offline. So in the person who is addicted, they can't see what we all can see. And it also is a spiritual hole. Now, I'm not talking religious, so don't get in a twit if you're listening and you hear me talk about a spiritual malady or a spiritual illness as well. But it is, there isn't an addict that I have ever come across, ever. And I can ask them two things. Have you ever done something when you were under the influence that you swore you'd never do?
Right.
And 99.9%, if not 100, say yes. And that other little nano group is lying. And then the second question is, have you ever promised to do something when you were under the influence and you couldn't do it? You didn't follow through. And the answer was yes. And when that happens, the person who is answering those questions, the addict, alcoholic, and they're the same, is going against their own code of ethics, their own morals. And there's something inside of them that says, I didn't show up when I said I would. And they have regret and shame. Or, oh my gosh, I said I'd never do this, and here I am. And the
Right.
shame and the guilt. Okay. When they feel, and I'll ask them this third question. If at any time when you were using, was there a tiny second even that you knew you were in trouble and that you wish you weren't doing this? And they all say yes.
Right.
And I say it's different than, oh, I'm having trouble, so I'm going to go get help. No. So when you have those experiences, you are going against your own morals. Now, maybe your parents taught you those. Maybe they didn't. Maybe that's just you just know in your heart this behavior is wrong or not doing this is wrong.
Mhm.
And so And if you don't have that shame and guilt, you're a sociopath. So,
Right.
I'm not going to help you on that one. But it's in the brain of an addict. Well, let me just reduce all that we know about the brain into my hand here. And I apologize to all the researchers. So inside the brain is this amygdala, and that's my thumb. And over it is the frontal lobe and the midbrain. Now, when a non-addict takes a sip of whatever, recreationally or however, nothing happens in here. Now, they might get drunk and dance on the table at New Year's, but that's not alcoholism. That's drug-induced behavior. You're crazy because you took a drug. But when somebody who has this addiction takes it, there's a switch that gets flipped in this old animal brain. And the brain says, wow, I like that. Dopamine spikes and it says, this is pleasurable. And then another brain chemical comes down to this amygdala and says, remember that. That's called glutamate. And when the glutamate comes down, it says, remember that feeling. You'll need it. And remember everything about it. The sights, the smell, the people, the colors, the everything. And the more times that happens, it renders the frontal lobe finally offline. And this is where my illustration's going awry here. This frontal lobe is where we make decisions. Now, this is not fully developed in a human being until about the age of 25 or 27. We come through our birth canal, our mother's birth canal, and it's tiny. So we have to come kind of half-baked. We're not fully developed. It's not like an elephant can just drop an elephant in a few minutes it walks, or a horse, or any of the large animals. We have to come out half developed and learn to develop. So when we look at a teenager and we say to them, why did you do that? You know better than that. I've taught you better than that. Maybe you have, but their brain is like, duh, it's not developed. Okay. And so they do stupid things because they can't see, they can't forecast where it's going. So I try to get families to stop talking about you have a problem. No, it's like, okay, this is your solution. And so how's it working? And the only time you can interrupt that is when they have just come out of a crisis. And then you might have a little tiny window of clarity. Now, even if they don't admit it, they may be willing, like you said, willing at that time to go do what's recommended. But if you wait too long, that moment slams shut. But when they're in this, as Dr. Silkworth says, when they come out of a spree and they emerge remorseful, and then they have this firm resolution, oh, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm not going to buy from that dealer. A perfect example for me. The reason I threw up in Detroit at the country club on New Year's Eve is because I was drinking Canadian whiskey, that blended whiskey. Now, if I had stuck with Southern, good old sour mash whiskey like Jack Daniels or Jim Beam, I would not have gotten drunk and thrown up and embarrassed myself and my family and thrown up in the bushes at the country club.
Right.
Now, if you think that makes sense, welcome. Come over to the side of recovery, because that makes no sense to anybody on the outside. The reason I got drunk in Detroit is that my body was smarter than my mind, and my body knew that I had had too much alcohol and was about to go into alcohol poisoning. So what it did is it got rid of it. And it didn't care if I was in a pretty dress or at the country club. It just said, Jeannie's body is in trouble. Get rid of this stuff. And so I threw up. Had nothing to do with where the whiskey was made, or I was at the country club, or any of that. It has to do with you're going to die, so we got to get this thing out of her body. And so I threw up. If you have somebody you want beginning to date, you want them to date the person that throws up in the bushes after 2 beers. You don't want to be able to say, oh, well, he can hold his liquor or she can hold her liquor. That's a precursor for tolerance. And any teenager that can drink you under the table is nothing to be proud of. You should be scared to death.
Where were you when I was young?
Drinking.
So cool. That all the time. So it's the solution, right? It's our solution to something that's going on inside of us, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? Replace it with what? With something else? Like what?
Well,
What
okay. First, I make everybody sit through a lecture on what's happening in their brain. You've got to learn that is going on in your head, and that's the disease. And the reason we call it a disease, it has symptoms. It follows a progressive course. It can be treated but can't cured. And that's what the American Medical Association calls, a disease. So you have to have the education about what's happening in your brain first. Then we have to move to your thinking. And there's a line that Dr. Silkworth uses in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says men and women drink essentially because they like the effect. Okay, he's talking about the solution. So next, what I do with somebody is, what does this thing do for you? What does it do? And it's different for everybody. Some people will say, I like the way it makes me feel, or I hate the taste and I don't care how it makes me feel, but it helps me not think. I don't have to think, and my head is not as obsessed, or it makes me look more beautiful. Or one of mine was, I drink because then I can stand people. I like it better. It's like I can stand to be in the same room. And I wouldn't necessarily be drinking at home, but if I had to go to a party where sometimes with my husband, and I thought, oh, this is going to be one of those evenings with all those boring people, then yeah, I'd get high. I think, okay, now I can stand you. So you have to say, what does it do for you? And then I go back in time and say, and when did it become your friend? And when did it become your best friend? And then when did it become a necessity?
Right.
And then you really have to go back to family of origin stuff and what decision did you make? Now, when I say go back to family of origin, I'm not saying go back to see why mommy and daddy made you an alcoholic. That is not what I'm saying at all. But every one of my clients, as much as I hate to, have to go back and we have to pay attention to what decisions did you make about life? What decisions did you make about relationships? What decision did you make about God? What decisions did you make? Because another thing the big book talks about is we have 3 situations. One, we step on the toes of others and they retaliate. And I'll say to people, have you done that? And they'll go, yeah, of course we all have.
Right.
Sometimes we even do it deliberately. I'm just going to go stomp on that person's toe. Then sometimes they hurt us and we're just walking down the block, fat, dumb, and happy, and don't realize it's like, what did I do to you? But the one that is the one that's hardest for us to take a look at when we're hurt is what decisions did you make based on yourself that later put you in a position to be hurt? And I'll give myself an example. So I can remember at 5 years old where I was standing looking at my mom folding clothes on the back porch. And I knew she was unhappy. I didn't know the word depressed yet, but I thought she's so sad and unhappy. What can I do to make her happy? I know. I will make her laugh. I'll be cute enough, smart enough, funny enough that she'll laugh. Because I remember a couple of times she'll say, oh, you're so funny. I'll make her laugh. And if I can make her laugh, she won't be sad. And if she's not sad, She's not going to argue with my father. And then they'll have a nice marriage and we'll be a happy family and we'll all go to Disneyland. Then I looked at my father and I said, he drinks too much. He's sad. He's loving. And there is such a thing as a loving alcoholic home. They're not all violent and brutal. They all cause wounds, but they're not all physical wounds. So I look at him and I think he just can't seem to get it together. But I know if I make him happy, then he won't drink. And then she will be happy and they'll be happy. We'll all be happy. And there. Now, I had no clue how I was going to do it, but I knew it was my job.
Right.
I also saw that it looked like they had a lot of stuff on their plate. There were 3 kids above me and she was having to go back to work. He couldn't keep jobs. And I thought, gosh, they've got a lot on their plate. So I'll make them happy. Now, another little story that goes along with that is if I'm busy making everybody, especially the 2 people that are in authority in my family, happy, then my other decision is don't have any needs, Jeanie. Don't take anything more to your family. Don't take it to your mom. And she's got enough to worry about. Don't take it to your dad. He's got enough to worry about it. Figure it out yourself.
So this is how we know that you were not the scapegoat.
Well, I turned into one at some point. I finally got in, and I have a little bit of that still in me. But in my family, everybody was a hero at first, and then you turn and gave the baton to somebody else. So no, I did what I could. This is a little off topic, but I guess not really. I digress anyway. I remember in church, in Sunday school one day, the poor teacher was trying to teach us that, we all have original sin.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the 4th grade, 6th grade, I don't remember, somewhere along in there. And I thought, I don't have original sin. And I raised my hand. I said, I don't have original sin. Oh, yes, you do. Everybody does. And I said, no, I don't. I try to be good and I haven't done anything wrong. I wasn't in the Garden of Eden. So therefore I don't have original sin.
Right.
And he, poor thing, he tried to prove it to me and I wouldn't buy it. It was like, So we all tried to be good and tried not to cause problems for our parents. But in doing so, it set me up for incredible codependency because I didn't have any needs. Don't have your needs met. Get your needs met by yourself. Be self-sufficient, be self-reliant. And then there came a day when I said, screw this, I'll do what I want.
Right.
But most of the time, the way I got out of trouble or made a contribution to anything was to be funny. But also, I then could be caustic and very sarcastic. So I incorporated probably a scapegoat, but with a little better PR a lot of times. And so I'd lay you flat with my sarcasm before you even realized you were on the ground.
Hi, my name is Shana, and I'm the CEO and founder of Controlled Chaos Coaching. Here at Controlled Chaos Coaching, we believe in reframing your thinking without shame. We believe in growing from setbacks and building a life you really enjoy. We will help you to find a sobriety path that works for you because sobriety is different for every single person. And we have an amazing group of women that will support you in your journey. So if you're ready to get sober, please contact me. You can contact me at my website, www.controlledchaoscoaching.com, or also on Instagram at Controlled Chaos Coaching. All right, I love you mucho.
Right. Okay.
And probably because I knew that if I didn't have the strength to beat you up, if I had been a boy, I'd have been in jail. I'd have been beating up everybody.
Right. Okay. So for the people who don't know, there's what? Like the scapegoat does what? The hero. Can you tell us about your...
And in telling you about these, I have to give credit to one of my mentors that I still am in touch with and adore and changed my life is Sharon Wegscheider Cruz. And she wrote the book, Another Chance, Hope and Health for the Family of the Alcoholic. And she named these 4 roles. And she'd worked with Virginia Satir, who was out here in California, and ended up adapting a lot of Virginia's ideas to the alcoholic family, because most therapists paid no attention to the alcoholic family. So the hero was the one who will try to bring pride and prestige to the family. They'll do well. They will leap tall buildings in a single bound. They take care of, a lot of times in families where there are multiple children, this is the kid who takes care of the littler ones when mom and dad are fighting, or mom's drunk, or dad's drunk, or there's violence going to happen. Or so they're trying to they're the ones that are trying to be good and overlooked in schools. They'll say, oh, well, we don't have to worry about her because she's on the National Honor Society and blah, blah, blah. They are adults where they shouldn't be. One of my clients knew how to make her mother a screwdriver for the morning, but didn't know how to make Jell-O yet.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones. And so when I'm teaching this in my family program, then I bring out my magic wand. I bring out my magic wand and I say, okay, heroes, I'm going to give you two gifts. One, the gift of play, because you didn't do that as much as a child. And then the gift that you're going to choke on, but I want you to practice it. And that's the gift of saying to the people in your life, I don't know. You're smart. You'll figure it out.
Right.
And of course they all, what do you mean? But you don't have to have every solution.
Right.
So, and I always laugh and say the heroes are called the control freaks by everybody else in the family. But boy, everybody else in the family needs them.
Yeah.
They're the people who love the Container Store. They love the Container Store. It's all in little neat waffle boxes. Everything is organized. Then the scapegoat is the one that is the most in touch with feelings. And people go, what? Because they are like, inside of them, it's like living in a sea of high waves. They're so emotional on the inside and very, very sensitive, but they don't let it show. And they act like they don't care. And they're the ones that are in the principal's office. And they're the truth tellers of the family. They're the ones that are saying, look, the emperor has no clothes. You know, dad's not asleep on the couch. He's drunk, you know. Right. And they get into trouble. Now, they're the ones, if I do this in a family treatment center and the clients are all in there with us, the circle of the scapegoats are 99.9% clients, because what they'll do is that they will sacrifice themselves in order to tell the truth. Now, I'm not talking about cash register honesty. Yeah, no, I didn't steal that out of your wallet. Of course they did. But they're the ones that are saying, why are you upset with my using when you drunk every night?
Right.
They're the ones that will, you know, just tell the truth and tell it like it is. They're the ones that are the most misunderstood in the public school system.
Yes.
They're screaming for somebody to come help their family, but when you get close, they'll bite your hand. So in treatment, they're the ones that have to stand still and hurt and admit that they're hurting. I love to work with the scapegoats because I just can get away with saying lots of stuff to them, probably because of my age. I'm like a mean grandmother. So I can tell them whatever, like I told you, shut up. Do you want to change? You want to go to treatment? You know, it's like, let's get to the solution here. Let's get to my solution here, not yours. And then there are two other roles of the family that adapt. Now, these roles are adaptations to what's happening in the family, okay? And you can be more than one, but another one is the lost child. This is the kid that when mom and dad start fighting, they go up to their room, play video games, get into a book and read a book, play with their Barbies. If they have real survival skills, they'll get somehow permission to go over to a friend's house, where the friend's house is calmer, safer, and it feels like family and a home there. And so they're the one that is the most lost. They're the wallpaper. They don't want to be the center of attention by any means. And when I have them come stand up together, I'll ask them, where did you go when it got unsafe in the family? And they'll say, out in nature, up a tree, in my room, somewhere away from the family, and quiet. They just disappear. And so then a lot of times the family will say, oh, well, I don't have to worry about her. She loves reading and I don't have any problems out of her. She doesn't require any kind of attention. And this is the kid that lives in fantasy. They just disappear. It's also the kid that might be the most susceptible to suicide. And then the last is mascot. The mascot, when I have them stand up, I have them do something very different. I'll have them stand in a circle and then face their audience, meaning the other people who didn't stand up, and go around when I say go very slowly so as not to upset the attorneys for the treatment center so we don't have an accident. Go around the circle very slowly and look at their audience. And invariably, then I say, okay, y'all stop. Audience, what did you see? And they'll say, we saw them smiling. And sometimes they're even so animated that they will do the Miss America wave as they're going around the circle.
Yes.
And then if it's a client that's in there, then I'll ask the parents if they're there. When did this child start being able to con you with his or her smile? And they'll say 2 minutes after the womb or 6 months or whatever. And that's the kid that is the one that brings levity and light and funny to the family. They're the clown. They're the one that they are masters at distraction. Mom and dad getting ready to fight, I'll spill my milk. And then all of a sudden we just look at, oh, well, I might get yelled at. Oh, well, that's okay. That's a small sacrifice for, we diverted that. And so to go back to what we were talking about is that people have to go back in and see what shaped them, not who's to blame. It's not about blaming. It's about what decision did you make? I know I'll bring them happiness. I know I won't have any needs. And I make people write those down because they don't go away. They just change. The audience just changes. That's still part of who you are. And that's the decision that you make. And so put yourself second, put everybody else first, all of those kind of decisions. And then watch where in your life today do those things come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so my theory, and it's going in my next book, and if you're listening out there, anybody who steals this, I'll find you. Like we said, the drinking is a solution. We have a whole bunch of other solutions in our back pocket or in our purse or in our bag of tricks or our backpack or whatever. And so at some point in life, we have to take a look at every one of those solutions and say, wow, how's this one working for me today? And okay, and I think I'm willing to put it back in and say, this is in my toolbox.
Right.
This one I'm going to use and continue to use just the way it is. And then maybe another one, you pick it up and you say, let's say one of my solutions is to try harder.
Mhm.
So I pick up try harder and I think, gosh, what does that get me? Gets me worn out, gets my blood pressure high, gets me neglecting my family because I'm doing too much. And people out there say, gosh, good, yay. But my family's saying, what do you do this for? Tell them no. Okay, well, maybe I need to moderate this. Maybe, or do I need to throw this one completely away? Do I throw try harder away? It's like, no, not completely. There are times and places in my life I could try a little harder.
Right.
So maybe I'll moderate this one. And I put that back in my toolbox. Then I may bring one up and say something I even liked. Oh man, but I like margaritas. Yeah, but the cost became too high. And so I need to get rid of this one as much as I love it. So I may have to do a grieving process, and I may have to go to treatment. I may have to do some things in order to get it where I throw it out. But the things we throw out are always still options for us. We just don't include them in today's toolbox.
Right.
But today, if I wanted to have a margarita, I could have a margarita. But at least today, I'll pick that up and I'll say, is this worth it? What's it going to get me? And is it worth it? And the answer to that is no, it's not. Not worth
Right.
it.
Right.
That it brings me up to I also help people with their spiritual journey with with kind of alternative methods of spiritual connection. One of
Yeah.
which is a shamanic practitioner. And
Mhm.
I don't have time, that'll have to be another complete broadcast to talk about what is shamanism, but it helped me on my spiritual journey when I could no longer accept the God that I grew up with and the whole theology of it.
And
So
that's something big for a lot of people, right? Is that they grew up with a certain God that was like based on religion or the church they grew up in. And they're like, I want nothing to do with that.
that was
Right.
very true for me. My dad left when I was 13 and died when I was 15 um, of alcoholism. And when he left, he was going to go figure it out. And when he figured it out, he was going to come back and get us. Well, that set this little girl up for hope and longing
Yeah.
for a drunk to keep his word and to come back and get us. And so, who did I go out and fall in love with? People who I was living on hope and longing, and people that promised me things, and words and actions didn't match. Okay, so he died, and I kind of rode my mother's coattails of her faith when he died. But when I stood there and looked at this dead man, and it was the first dead person I'd ever seen, I raised spiritual questions, but nobody was there to show me and say, honey, you're asking spiritual questions. I would say, where did he go? He looks like he's about to wake up. What is a personality? Did he go to heaven? What is heaven? Some people don't believe there's a heaven at all. They just think when our body stops, that's the end. Is that true? And I remember asking those questions, but I couldn't get straight answers from the people in the church or even my mother. She was too full of grief, and she never could get a real straight answer out of my mother. She was a Libra, but that's a whole nother broadcast. But I would get placated like, well, he's in a better place. And I thought, well, I understand he's not worried about things on earth, but how do you know it's a better place? Then shortly thereafter, when I was 20, between 20 and 21, my mother died of cancer. And we had 9 months notice when she got it, or not when she got it, but when she was diagnosed and when she died. And
Right.
that's when, I was saying, what? This is so unfair. She finally got 4 children raised, me being the last. And I was just about, had one semester of college left and was just about to graduate. And she dies. She'd gotten to a place in her life she could actually go out with friends and had an extra $5 to go to dinner. Back in those days, you could. And, so now you can't even leave a tip of $5 without filing a lawsuit. Anyway, so I had so many questions. And then the minister at the time, and she was a deacon in the church, the minister trotted up to me and said, well, this is God's will. Now, that was the wrong thing to say to this little hero about to go scapegoat. And I said, well, then you can take your God and shove it. And I hated God for 10 years. Now, I didn't say there was no God because I had a running battle with him. I'd say something and then I think, oh, I forgot I'm not talking to you. And so my whole spiritual journey of how I got back to this creator that I know today is a whole nother broadcast. We got about 6 broadcasts already going here. And that's very common with people with addiction. The shame and the guilt that people feel and the things that they have done or felt or said is real. And so I had to have a real slow educational variety of spiritual awakening. And one of the ways I did that was, see, when you're an adult child of alcoholism, one of the first things you lose is your ability to read your intuition. You can't trust your intuition because the adults around are saying, Dad's not drunk. He's asleep on the couch. And you're going over there and thinking, he looks drunk, smells drunk. I think he's
Right.
drunk. But I better not say that because they told me that what I'm seeing and feeling isn't true. So that had gone out of me for a while. I knew it, but I knew better than say anything about it at the time. So I was driving down the streets in Los Angeles one day and I heard this broadcast on the radio. Says that tells you how long ago it was. Says there's a gathering of the shaman and the healers from all over the world at Big Bear. And I thought, I need to go. Why do I need to go? I don't even know. And I thought, I don't even know where Big Bear is. I think it's on top of one of the mountains. And I don't think your 14-year-old Honda is going to make it up the mountain. And why do you want to go? So long story short, I found one of the ladies that was speaking up there. And she didn't live too far from me. She lived in Topanga, which is kind of the hippy dippy part of LA. And I called her and I said, may I have an appointment? And she said, well, certainly. So she made an appointment about as we were going to hang up. She said, may I dream for you? I thought, well, sure. I said, yeah, go ahead. I thought, knock yourself out. I don't know what that means, but have a good time. And so when I went to see her and I gave myself permission that if she was too wacko, I'd just leave. And I went, I thought, well, she looks okay. And this room that she let me come into looks okay and don't seem to have dead bodies in it or people ready to snatch me. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I think we have work together. And she looked at me and she said, yes, we do. You've come to me to learn how to be an elder. And I burst into tears. And I said, I know, but I don't know what that means. And so I began working with her. And she was one of my first shamanic teachers. And she sent me to see someone else too. And I went to Dina. And I said, I'm here because Valerie told me I needed to come. And I'm just trusting what I call is picking up the popcorn or the breadcrumbs and seeing that if there's a message for me. And so Dina then said, prepare to be 60. See, and I said I had moved to Los Angeles when I was 50. She said, prepare to be 60. And I said to her, oh, no, I don't want to be, no, I don't want to be 60. And I started doing this, like, I'm living in Los Angeles now. I'm going to look like an alien. And she didn't think that was funny. She turned around and looked at me and said, I said, prepare to be 60. I thought, okay. She said, because by then you will have gathered a people who need an elder. And I knew she was right. So I began studying how to connect with nature and how to connect with spirit in the invisible, helping spirits. And the whole time I kept thinking, is this dumb? Am I making this stuff up? What am I going to do? Be a shaman? I thought, no, you can't be a shaman. You don't live in an indigenous tribe and you haven't been doing this since you were 5. Anyway, I shut my brain up. Like I said, shut up and just do this until it feels weird and you don't think you need to be doing it. Well, I've been doing it years now.
You do like the little retreats and stuff like that. And I've been like, I want to go just because I love you as a counselor and how you talk. It makes perfect sense. And it always like heals a little part of me. I'm not sure about the whole shaman thing, but I seen you're doing something. So I'm going. One day I'm going, but I'm going to this. So you have to tell us about it.
Well, the main technique, if I hate to use the word technique, but practices, the main practice of any kind of shamanic work is the shamanic journey. And so you can't do any shamanic work without knowing how to journey. And it's a cross between guided meditation, which maybe you've done at treatment centers or just with regular old people online or CDs or whatever. and meditation. But instead of just meditating, which a lot of people can't do, I couldn't sit still that long. You go into a meditative state, which is also called non-ordinary reality, which we can talk about, an altered state, and you don't do it with drugs. Now, some cultures do it with drugs, and that's kind of what I was thinking about when we were talking about picking up solutions. I can't use any mood-altering, mind-altering chemicals because I've put my addiction into remission, or I haven't, but the addiction that I have is in remission, and I don't want to do anything to activate it, be it any of my former solutions or going hanging out with dope fiends or anything, any behaviors. So first thing I asked these ladies is, I would like to learn this, but I'm not going to use any plant medicine or any kind of ayahuasca or any kind of drugs at all, or hallucinogens. And they didn't. And so they assured me I could learn this without. And I'm here to tell you that I'm kind of the recovered shamanic practitioner, because I don't use drugs and I don't allow the people that I teach to use them. In fact, I ask you not to have caffeine the day we're going to learn about this journey. So I use percussion. You can use rattles, you can use drums, and I will show you how to get in with that beat, because the drum is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And you can get into an altered state. And if you have an open mind, I'll guide you into finding and requesting that a helping spirit come forward and show themselves to you. And I'll instruct you what to say, how to approach them, and you will learn some of your helping spirits, who they are, and you can then learn from them. Then we'll go to the upper world to see if a teacher comes forward. We'll even go into the middle world and do journeys to talk to water or the four elements, air, fire, earth. And you can use those helping spirits every single day. And it's best not just to do this once, but then to join a group that meets maybe once a month, or does drumming group, or continues. If they want to continue learning, then you can continue on with a group of people. When I met Valerie, she was about to start a 3-year study in shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 12 of us that signed up. And we all said, well, we don't understand. Are we going to be shaman? We don't understand. And she kept saying, you don't have to understand. Well, it finally went down to 8 of us. And a few of us are still practicing and teaching others. And that's what I like to do. I like to expose people to this basic shamanic journey. And then whether you want to continue doing any studies with me online or with anybody else, you'll have a little better knowledge of how to do this, and also how to speak with your helping spirits. And they're real. The word shaman comes from the Greek. I always said that the last 2 days, and that's not right. It comes from the Siberian word tungus, meaning one who sees in the dark. So you can see past the veil. And it's funny because somebody will say, let's say a bear comes forward, a brown bear, and you say, are you one of my helping spirits? And they may say yes. And then you'll come out of the journey and you'll say, oh my gosh, brown bear is one of my healing spirits or my helping spirits. And I used to have a brown bear when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual that you already have helping spirit totems, or they're also called fetishes, but that you already have them around your house.
Right.
I like flamingos, or, oh, I like so-and-so, or I collect birds, and the reason you do is that's one of your helping spirits.
That's cool. So it's going to be 25th, right?
25th. at noon West Coast time, which is 3 East Coast time. And I'm sorry to do that. The 25th is a Saturday. And I know I'm trying to plan these things. There's a time when some people just can't. If you got a big family or you got a soccer game, I don't know. But if you're running problems, call me, message me, something.
Get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and talking with me. You're like my favorite ever.
As we conclude this powerful episode of Controlled Chaos, a Recovery podcast, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every listener who has joined us on this journey of resilience and renewal. These stories are shared with the hope that someone out there struggling in the shadows of addiction may find a glimmer of hope and inspiration. If you're listening and in need of support on your own path to sobriety, please remember that you are not alone. Visit my website at www.controlledchaoscoaching.com and schedule a discovery call today. Together we can explore the possibilities of healing, growth, and a brighter future ahead. Thank you for being a part of this community, for your courage in facing your challenges, and for believing in the power of transformation. Remember, there's always hope, and help is within reach. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward on your journey to recovery. Love you mucho.